Shock Piece: The Search for Freedom, a novel by C. Nguyen. Epilogue: A Summer in England, 2015. The water was green and slimy, but Trin could see that the wild drakes and the family of 6 ducklings were enjoying it contentedly. The handsome male pack had returned after a half-hour's absence. They flew off all at once, leaving the mother duck with her brood behind, when Trin joyously ran into their flock while picking wild daisies on the lawn. Trin was so delighted with the wildflowers. They were in several places, here and there, haphazardly breaking the green patch into colorful sections. Amid the little white daisies there were yellow dandelions and pinkish dog roses, which added variety to the lot. The handsome drakes, with distinctive shiny jade green smooth heads, a ring on the neck, and bright lemon beaks, swam around leisurely in groups of 2 or 3. Not too far away was the modest mother duck with her brood. The 6 little plain greyish ducklings clumped together protectively. They were all happily dipping their beaks in and out of the green water, searching for tidbits. Some even dived head down underneath the surface, leaving half of their body and tail pointed vertically in the air. The partial bodies with the wiggling tail and missing head made Trin chuckle with amusement at the peculiar forms. The sound of a small splashing fountain in the middle of the pond was soothing to her ears. The chirping of birds added to the serenade of the morning. It was so tranquil here, she almost said aloud. On the edge of the irregular, oval-shaped pond, there were purple irises on one side and healthy white lily in the valley bush on the other side. Scattered on the right side of the water surface, the miniature water lilies were in bloom. The clusters were moving slightly in the water, bending sideways as if trying to duck out of reach of the mischievous carp underneath. They were tickled by the feathered, snipping touch of the carps. Trin was sure. The fish thoroughly enjoyed disturbing those arrogant water lilies from time to time. See, the flowers had the chance to show off their pure white color blooms in the air. Even the timid, subtle, pinkish ones were proud of their beauty and stood high under the bright yellow sun. Nevertheless, the carp could not have that privilege. They were hidden below the surface. Trin had tried very hard to look for them, peering through the thick, slimy, greenish water, but they seemed to be introverts. Their wide, bright, orange lips peeped up on the surface as if gasping for air for a very brief moment or two, then disappeared quickly. Cowards! She was curious to see how big and how colorful the carp could be. She even walked along the bank by the perimeter of the pond, following their movements. Pity, the water was so murky that Trin could not see anything underneath, not even a glimpse, and they were so adept at quickly swimming into hiding once her shadow fell upon the surface. The black crow was strolling alone at the far side of the park after swirling around the air a few times at the tops of tall, ancient trees. The trunks were as wide as a big wheel, some at least half a meter in radius. Her first time in England, the beautiful town of Walton-on-Thames, had given Trin a sense of peace the moment she arrived. The weather had been kind, the sun was bright, and there was not even a cloud in the sky. It was blue like the ocean. The town had had a few days of rain before she came, and the luxuriant, lush green vegetation in the area somehow enhanced its romantic, enchanting atmosphere. "Oh!" Trin exclaimed. A squirrel had ventured out of the wood. She jumped up and pointed it to Charles, sitting on the park bench, immersed in the glorious summer day. She walked toward him, in her hand a bouquet of wildflowers and dried pine cones she had collected in a short while. Mwah! She kissed him playfully on the cheek, then sat down beside him. He put his left arm around her shoulder, bent down, and kissed her lips in return. Then they both fell into a comfortable silence, observing the natural activities around the pond. The bouquet of wildflowers was arranged in front of Trin's feet, surrounded by pine cones on the green lawn. From a distance, the squirrel's tiny body was brown, and its fluffy tail was high in the air. It was busy scurrying in and out of the bush nearby for a few minutes, looking very industrious. And then it took all the courage it could to hop tentatively toward the pond. It went closer to the edge, putting its head down to drink a bit of the murky greenish water, and then shook its body as if the water was somewhat strange to the taste. It must be that, Trin thought amusedly, of course. It's thirsty, she told Charles, as if he did not know. How could one live and thrive happily in that slimy water? Charles wondered aloud. I've thought the same, Charles. Trin had had a similar reflection a moment ago. But look, all the creatures, the ducks, the fish, the birds, the water lilies, the irises, and even the squirrels seem to love it and bathe in it happily, she added triumphantly. She had seen the fauna of the park and the drakes and the ducks enjoying it tremendously, and all the vegetation and flowers were blooming. They seemed to love their environment, unlike human beings who had judgments about all kinds of appearances, especially slimy green water. Trin smiled at her thoughts. Would you fancy a stroll? Charles stood up when the squirrel retreated inside the wood. Okay, where to? The Thames. Great, okay, let's go. It was only a short drive to the Thames path through Walton-on-Thames, an approximately 300-kilometre route which opened in 1996 to give the walkers a pleasant, unspoiled view of the English villages along the path. The river and its habitat reminded Trin very much of her father's hometown in Vietnam in an unusual way. The two towns might not have had anything in common except the stream of muddy water slowly drifting by and the dirt path along the bank. Yet it had somehow jogged her memory of the similar dirt path along the river southwest of Saigon, thousands and thousands of kilometers away from here. She had taken that path many times when she was a little girl, visiting her grandmother with the family in summer vacations. Her river was more alive with dense clumps of floating water plants, lilies and hyacinth on the surface, living in sampans with elongated shapes crowded with families and children splashing and swimming noisily in the water. Trin remembered that there was one time she sat on the river bank with her feet dangling, holding to a branch of water lily. Then it slipped from her tiny hand and fell down to the river below. Without thinking, Trin reached out after it and fell in with a splash. The little girl would have drowned if not rescued swiftly by her much older cousin. The incident was still clear in her memory now, even though she was only 4 or 5 at the time. What a fright that had been, but she rescued the lily at least. Wet and scared as a little mouse, the girl had held tight to it as if it was her most precious possession. The Thames was cleaner and quieter, with a few speedboats moored placidly and a large houseboat at anchor, showing no sign of anyone living there. But there was a group of young women rowing steadily along with harmonious movements. The usual distinctive shiny green drakes of England and the plainer female ducks were swimming leisurely. A lone sophisticated white swan swam among the ducks, showing off her beauty. Her flock might be somewhere upstream. There were native bushes and trees on the riverbank. The extraordinary variety of wildflowers showing themselves exquisitely in different colors. White daisy, violet bluebell, yellow agrimonies and spearwort, purple opium poppy, and many more. A few pedestrian bridges joining the two banks were also present, but it seemed they were hardly used these days. Wait! Drin stopped abruptly and walked over to the big tree with hanging leaves and dangling fruits. She reached up and picked a fruit off the branch. Look, this is unusual. What tree is it? Do you know, Charles? Ah, this is a helicopter flower tree, and when the fruits are dry, we used to pluck off the upper leaves and throw the lower part up in the air. Then it falls down with a movement like a helicopter rotor blade. Let me show you. He threw up a few fruits before Trin could see the rotor blade action. She squealed in delight. It could be that the fruits aren't dry enough. They're still too green, too fresh. It might not be in season yet. Charles explained the few failed attempts. Back home in Vietnam, we have the Dipterocarpus zeylanicus tree, and its fruit has double wings, much bigger and heavier than your helicopter one. We also used to collect them on windy days, then throw them up in the air for them to swirl around like a yo-yo. It's quite fun. My brothers, sister, and I used to love playing the childish, simple game. Yeah, funny. Sometimes those playful acts seem insignificant at the time, but when years and years go by, they become the most remarkable memories a person can recall from their childhood. I also used to ride along this path many times in summer, he added. I remember I bought a bicycle when I was at a boarding school, about 30 kilometers away from here. I did not know how to get it home. It's quite a dilemma, you know. In the end, when summer vacation came, my parents drove there to pick up my belongings and I rode the bike home myself. He laughed at the memory, a faraway look on his face. It must be fun, Charles. Sure, back in those days, riding a bike somewhere was almost an occasion. The boys and I did the tour on the Seven Hill Road, the most spectacular one, counting the hills one by one until we reached the last of the seven, yelling and making a noise all the way. Ah, those carefree younger days, too long gone now for you, darling, she teased him, smiling. She knew that he hated to be reminded of his age. They walked on further, holding hands. It was a beautiful, picturesque trail, and the walk was pleasant for both of them. You know, this trail must have been in existence for thousands of years. And I am sure there are many charming love stories as well as ghastly, horrific stories for every bush and tree, or for every spot, every corner, she said again for a while. Gruesome murders and eerie ghost stories, Drin added. She hunched her shoulders, making a scary gesture with her hands folded across her chest. For example, don't walk too close to that underbridge over there. There might be hands with long black claws poking out through the bars of that window beneath and pulling your legs over. She laughed aloud at her gobbledygook. Yeah, you're right. That comes with history, I think. For a town this old, I am sure we have plenty of stories, Charles agreed. The day ended wonderfully. That night, lying in the crook of Charles's arm, Drin thought of the day before. You've come to England at the right time. Very good choice of season, a friend of Charles had said to her at an old pub, the 1505 Duke of Cumberland in Haslemere. Drin answered, indeed, it could not be any other time. Yes, the time could not be any better for Drin to be acquainted with Charles's hometown, and it was an enchanting trip for her. Destiny and circumstances, either or both, had influenced her sentiments in the past. Moreover, right now, in the setting of a gorgeous historical town so far from home, she had begun to feel closer to Charles. She had seen in him a person with charisma and warmth. She had fallen in love with him or his hometown. Drin was not sure, but she felt so at peace, light-hearted and happy in his presence here. Her heart mellowed with the childhood memories he recounted to her, and with the magical River Thames and its surroundings. Drin suddenly came to realize that she had to say goodbye to something old but very dear to her heart before she could embrace something new in return. Her mind had to be exorcised of the past loves and images before it was ready to accept a new one. Perhaps it was time.